Welcome to Learner's Mind, and in this video I'd like to illustrate how one can use Formic Forms. And on my desktop I have this folder created here, and inside this folder so we have a project. Now to be able to use Formic Forms, you need to ensure that you've installed Formic, and you can do that by just using npm install Formic, and it's going to install that for you. Now I'll open my project in Visual Studio Code, and it's already here open. So if you look at my package JSON, you're going to find that I have that installed somewhere here, and actually it's here. Formik is installed, and I'm using this version 2.4.6, but any version that is above 2.4.6 should just work fine. In my project, this is a Vite project, by the way, and in this project, as you can see, if you've created a project using Vite, then this should be okay with you. You should be familiar with such things. And what I want to do is, looking at this app, I'm using React Router to provide routing for my application, and right now I only have one route, which is the index route that's now pointing to null. So what I want to do is create a form in another file somewhere, and then I'm going to provide that form here, and I'm using Material UI. So if you're comfortable with Material UI, fine, you can follow along. But also, if you're not working with Material UI, if you have another library that you're comfortable with, is just fine. To do that, inside my source folder, I want to create another folder just to keep my work neat. So I'll call this one forms, and it is inside these forms that I want to create a file called maybe login form, sign up form. Let me create a sign up form. So JSX, and now here we have our sign up form, and it is this sign up form that we are going to import inside our app.js, so that when we come back to our browser here, which I've loaded localhost 5173, which is already running in my Visual Studio Code down here. So what we're going to do is create the form here, and then we will try to load it and see how it's going to perform. So I'd like to return, but then let me just close that to have more space here, and I want to close most of these files because I don't need them. And I want to return, since I'm using Material UI, I can simply proceed and use something like a stack from Material UI. And by using a stack, let me just set the row gap to something like 1, and inside this stack I can now create my text fields. So let me create the first text field, and can save that. Now I want to export this, so down here I'll say export, just export it at default. And now in our app.js, I want to import sign up form.jsx, and it is this sign up form that I want to pass it here. So I'll place here this sign up form like that, save, and then look at, we just have plain sign up forms like that. Now if you like them to be like this is okay. If you want to add something, like now I want to add labels to our form, let me close that. So back to a sign up form, I want to add, save like that. If you look back here and now we have them here, but if you click like that, you can see the label now appearing at the top. This because I'm using a standard text field, but you can also use text field, but you can also use a standard text field, whichever the variant that you'd like. If you're using Material UI, you should be in a position to change the variants and use whichever you like. Required before submission. And since this is a form, actually I need to wrap it inside a form. So I'll wrap it inside a form like that, and then just carry this closing tag to the end, paste it like that, save, and Prettier is going to do everything for me, the formatting for me. And that is it. Now we have our form here enabled, and it has everything. It's now inside a form. Now in this form, on submit, I want to give it a function that takes an event. And the reason why I'm doing this is because first of all I need to prevent default submission, prevent default, and then now I want to use my form to handle submission. Now here, as you can see, we don't have a button to handle the submission. Let me just put here a loading button from material UI. It will be imported from material UI, loading button, and the variant. Let me proceed and create the form here. So I'll say I'll call it sign up form. So sign up. I think it's time for me now to go through all of them. Now initial values, I need to provide an object here, but the keys of those objects should match, be of type password, because now password should not be visible, so that's why I need to have it as type password. Now there we go. Let me check if it loaded successfully, and there goes, we have our button here, our submit button. So now that we have our form, our Formic form, and then next I need also to use that sign up form here and call it here. Now on submit, I should prevent the default and then use this sign up form dot hand. And now next, what we need to do is something very simple. Also, if we click on submit, we need to make sure that this loading button does not allow the user to resubmit. So to do that, we must prevent double clicking or maybe repetitive clicking on this submit to submit the same form several times. So to do that, we will disable it by now taking this loading to false. Right now the loading is false, but the loading should depend now on the form. If the form is submitting, then this loading should also be there. So loading should be sign up form. I'll use the sign up form dot is submitting. Now if you have the is submitting is true, then loading will also be true, and you'll see that loading state of this button. So most of the part is actually done, but then there's something else that we have not handled yet, and that is how will Formik track the changes here. To make sure that Formik track changes, there are two ways of doing that, and one way is by calling the maybe on change, and I can call the on change and say let sub, what did I call it, sign up form, let sign up form dot handle change. So I can pass it there like that, and then I can proceed by saying also on blur, and do the same, sign up form dot handle blur, and I can keep doing this on each, but then this is more of something that is repetitive, on blur, on change, something like that. And then there is no actually need for you to do that. There is actually another way of doing it, a shortcut, by simply spreading sign up form. If I get sign up form dot get field props, if I get field props for first name, first name like that, then it will grab all those field properties for first name, and that includes change, that includes uh, uh, blur, and so many other fields, and then it will spread them here. So I can do the same. I can simply copy this and do the same for that. Undo, but I didn't copy it well, so let me copy that and then paste it here. And the only thing I need to change is this one, grab for last name, and then let me just close that so that I can have a look at it properly, and then do the same for the email. And now I need here email, so grab the email field properties and then spread them there, and then you also need that for password, so paste there, and I'll grab that for password. Now I think most of the work is done. Now this Formik can track the change, the basic. Now next is actually to perform an action. When we click submit, now we get the values, and these values is actually this object here with all that log, to log everything to just to the console, and I want to log the values to the console. But if you want to perform anything you want with those values, maybe you want to post them to the server or something like that, then you should do such a thing. Now lastly, we come here to validation schema, and here it is recommended that you use yup or yap, the way you like it. So to do that, first of all, make sure yap is installed, and I have it installed already. So if it's not installed, you can kill your server down here, and then you can do npm install yup, and then it will do that for you. So I just want to import everything as yup from yup, and then since I've imported everything now from yup, I can come down here to my form where I need to perform validations here, and I can do something like this, yup dot object, and I want just to build a validation schema. And once I get an object, a function requires me to provide an object in here. So I'm building my schema down here, and what I'm going to do now is that this schema is going to take the shape of these initial values. So just take that, copy, paste them in there, and then now I want to force this one to be, I say yup.string. By just doing that, make sure it is a string, and then maybe I can say dot minimum. The minimum value should be the minimum length of that string. No, let me not set the minimum, let me just say it is required. And if it is required, and if you don't put it, then you should see an error saying maybe just asterisk and then required. So this is what is going to be used to validate our form. And then I can also do the same with, copy that, put there for that, and then the last one, and then like that. But now email is required, but also it is of type email, so I just chain them this way, and email. And if you don't provide a valid email, the message should just be invalid email. And then if then it should just say required. If password is there or not, it should just say required, and then we are good to go. But now, where will these errors be displayed? We want these errors to be displayed somewhere, and what you need to know is that the sign up form, this instance attribute called errors. So what we're going to do is that I want actually a typography here and use it to display my errors. But another better way which I find useful is to use the label itself to display the error. So for the first time, I want to display first name like that, but then I want to also okay. Now let us check what we've just done. We have our first name. I'll click submit. It's going to submit our form, and since our form will be submitting, then it will change. The submit button will be disabled, and we'll be seeing a loading progress here, indefinite progress. So like that, and as you can see, it is loading because now the form is submitting. And if we check on the developer tools, we should see our issue settled here. So let us see if there was anything. And password. So this object is being printed here because inside our code, that is what we did on submit here. We are logging all those values that we've input here. So is to follow that path. If you have questions, you can put them down in the comments, and then I can review this video and see if I should also show you or actually create another video to illustrate how one can use Formik to update these values with the values passed down through props. That sums up everything you need to know and the basics of Formik. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a thumbs up, and if you have not subscribed yet, I kindly request you to do